What's with all these badass women in movies and TV who still need to be rescued by men? Or the ones who can defeat armies of muscle-bound henchmen bare-handed, but have to do it in skin-tight suits and high heels? And what's up with those badass women who never wanted or needed a man until our suave hero sexed her up, and then she dies? Welcome to the Outrider Podcast's 7-part series, Problematic Badass Female Tropes. I'm your host, Jason Quinn Malott, and I'll be talking with the writer, performer, and all-around badass who identified these tropes, my friend Jenn Zuko. So strap on some pasties and a merkin, and let's do this thing. Welcome to the Outrider Podcast, our series on problematic badass female tropes. Today's episode is Down the Rabbit Hole. Now, I'm going to apologize right now for doing this 3 shows in a row and coming up with an alternate name.
Aren't we doing like a different name every single episode? We're gonna have 7 different names, right?
Right, but see, the thing is that I feel like I shouldn't. I was worrying today that if I came up with a third one, you would begin to think that I was not taking this seriously, and yet.
I'm sorry. Wait.
What?
Hey, Jason, have we met?
Well, it's been a while since we've been around each other in person, so I just wanted to make sure that I am taking this seriously, but I can't help myself. So
okay, well, look here. What's the difference between what you and I are doing right now and what we used to do in grad school?
Not much, except we have essays now to riff off of.
Well, it's
that you wrote.
We used to riff off of our own writing a lot of the time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
That is true.
The only difference, I will aver, is that we are not in physical proximity of each other, but we're doing exactly the same thing. We're drinking copiously. We're talking about literature.
That's right. So my alternate title for today was down the badass hole.
Down the badass hole.
Down the badass hole.
God. Oh wow. Yeah, depending on what which emphasis on which syllable you have, that could have any number of meanings.
Down the badass hole. Down the badass hole.
Down the badass hole. Down the badass hole. Which is how I normally do it. You know, being who I am and all.
So just for the all right.
God,
so for
right.
the sake of the readers who have decided that they aren't going to read the essays.
Well, fuck those our listeners. I mean,
did I say readers? I meant listeners. No, we don't want to. They're nice people. They just happen to prefer the audio version. So
Let's sit here and read it aloud to them.
I know you don't have to read the essay. We're just doing a quick recap of the high points of what the rabbit hole trope is.
Down the rabbit hole. What I would like to do this time, instead of prattle on like I have been the past couple of episodes, I would like to hear your take on what you think the center of the down the rabbit hole trope is, having read this however many times you have read it. And then I can go, hey, that's not what I meant. I meant it to be like this. Or like, I'm just curious. I'm curious to see what you bring from it after having read the article yourself. Well, just mixing it up a little. Keep the body guessing.
I am tempted to think that here's how my basic understanding of Down the Rabbit Hole is. You have a female character who, in one fashion or another, is much like Alice in Wonderland, sent into a semi-alternate space, either because they are somehow out of place with the environment that they've been introduced into. So like River Tam, Lilu from The Fifth Element, they have been taken out of some space of normalcy and put into a space of abnormalcy. And in that space,
through the ringer.
Right. And in that space, they do kind of a version of the hero's journey. They acquire powers or not, or help and from various places. And But the problem with this particular trope is that what it's doing is from your essay, putting a lot of sexual overtones and dependency onto it that really shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that I did have a bit of a problem with, that I was kind of a little, as I felt that you were perhaps hitting the idea of hitting the idea a bit too hard of the torture having a sexual element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Or a titillating kind of.
Were you not seeing that aspect of it?
You know, the thing is that, you know, we talk, there are certain movies out there that we have classified, that have been classified as, you know, word porn, so torture porn,
right.
Violence porn, right? But in those cases,
the word porn meaning it's merely for like a titillating type of like visual pleasure, right?
No, where porn is meaning it's gratuitous and graphic. So the way I think of let's whittle it down to just the basic term porn or pornography.
Yeah, that's a different term.
It has a certain element to it, yes, where it does titillate, or at least that's what it was originally designed to do. What is passing as porn right now, I would not really think of as being as necessarily titillating. I would term it the way that Dan Savage did, is it's kabuki sex. It's stunt sex.
Love Savage.
Right?
Yeah.
And so pornography, just straight sex porn, yes, it's about sex, but it's unrealistic. And that's
mm-hmm.
But we can take that term, that basic concept of it being performative, of it being exaggerated,
mm-hmm.
in that sense of the way Savage refers to it as kabuki. So what you have
great,
here,
yeah.
what you have here with what you call torture porn is not, because what I thought here was sometimes is that you were using that term porn as a literal reference to the sex or the sex aspect of it, and you were hitting that a little bit too hard.
Okay.
But you know, it makes a little bit more sense to me if you broaden out that term porn to include that kind of performative, graphic, exaggerated thing. Yes, these women have been tortured, but it's not necessarily there to titillate us or to have us feel pleasure at their at those women being tortured, right? So in the way that it's because when you take a look at actual, you know, like torture porn type of stuff, like the Saw series,
or the Centipede,
right? But that's where you have the audience is being particularly asked. It's not so much the audience being asked to enjoy the suffering of that character, but it's this weird kind of a directorial design. I think the director takes more pleasure in putting the suffering on. And he thinks that he's saying something about the human condition by doing something that graphic, but it's missing entirely. Hence, we call it porn because it's performative, it's graphic, it's unrealistic. It doesn't.
See, I would say the directors of those movies do actually expect and are doing that specifically to have their audience enjoy what they're seeing. Absolutely, he is. Absolutely.
Maybe that's a moral rigidity on my part, where it's that, you know, I do not ever get any type of pleasure or joy out of the torture and suffering of others.
No, of course not. No, but other people do, and that's the idea.
Right, so that's that to me. It feels like kind of a big hole in the middle of this trope, because
I would say that I should add a couple of. I like your definition of porn as being, because I think that your problem with this trope is in your definition of porn specifically.
Uh-huh.
And what I'm writing about when I write about torture porn in this particular article, it's not specifically that. I mean, yeah, I actually really like your pinning of porn meaning something that's graphic and exaggerated and performative and like theatrical almost.
Right.
I like that a lot. But when I'm talking about porn, I'm talking about something that is purely for visual pleasure. You look at it and you get pleasure.
Right.
That's what porn actually is. So you look at like websites are like, here's some food porn for you. That's what they're talking about when they use the word porn. And when there's a movie that's categorized in that subgenre of horror called torture porn, that's the idea of those movies. Though you of course would never enjoy something like that, being Jason Malott.
Right.
That is the idea of those movies, like Saw. It is literally to give you it's not, I mean, the word pleasure can denote all kinds of things, but that is the idea actually, is that you get a visual stimulation from watching that torture.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about. There's this dual thing in the Down the Rabbit Hole thing where you have infantilization of the badass character as well as a brutalization of the character. It's this twofold thing, which makes the strong female character tortured, and you're supposed to enjoy watching this process. It's supposed to be stimulating. I don't know if titillating necessarily is the right word every time you use it, but it should be stimulating to you. Also, though, that actually completely disempowers the character, because then that character is also infantilized at the same time, which means that she is completely dependent on the male characters, the bigger male characters in her story, and in fact, she's actually quite useless without them. Like I'm looking at Lilu and River Tam in particular. They can't function in life without the males in their world.
Yeah, well, I think there's.
Does that make a little more sense?
Well, I understand I understand the arc of the argument.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if the intent, as you say here, is to have some kind of, or derive some kind of pleasure in the torturing of this badass female character, then what I'm saying is that why that creates kind of a big hole in the trope for me is that kind of really only hits a small segment of the audience watching it, if that's the case. I mean, I can't be alone as the only person who sits there and cringes when River Tam is tortured. I don't get anything out of those scenes that I would ever call anywhere near pleasure or yeah, she got it. It's like.
It's not that extreme, but it's more of a getting a stimulated kind of. Well, just maybe this will be clear. At the end of the article, I talk about why is this even a problem? Because there's all kinds of characters, men and women, that get tortured all the time in movies, especially action movies. So that's kind of part of the point. Right. Is you put a badass character, whatever the gender, in the middle of all kinds of things, and the enjoyment of an action movie is to watch that character get their ass out of all the scrapes that they get to. The thing is that it's this dual sexualization of it and infantilization of it. Like I'm looking in particular at the end of the article, I compare two characters. One is Beatrix Kiddo from the Kill Bill movies, and the other is
those movies at all.
I have a problem. In the stunt coordination business kind of enjoy part of them, but
yeah. Well, visually, Tarantino's movies are amazing.
There's a big difference between all of the trials and tribulations that she goes through. You watch her and the gaze that you're supposed to have by watching her go through all this stuff, the types of tortures she goes through, the costumes she wears, the lines she speaks, all that stuff is different than, say, watching John Wick.
Is that the Keanu Reeves thing?
Yeah. Or like look at the escape scene in Dr. No, right? James Bond is crawling through the escape ventilation. There's an old. It first started through email. This is a little side note, but it's relevant. There's this little old meme that would always circulate through email. It's called "If I Become Evil Overlord." And it's like all these things I'm not going to do. So it went through all the tropes of like evil overlord and how the hero gets to. I will not have ventilation shafts big enough to crawl through.
Right.
All of my minions will have clear plastic masks over their helmets. Anyway, so
don't tell the good guy your plans. When you've got him on the rack and you're going to kill him, just kill him.
Just kill him. When the hero says, "Aren't you going to tell me your plan before you kill me?" Shoot him in the head and then say no. All kinds of stuff. It's great. But anyway, but the point of watching like John McClane going through all of his trials and tribulations and Die Hard. I'm thinking especially that particular scene in Dr. No where James Bond is crawling through that ventilation shaft. There's one section of it that gets really hot and that burns him. The other section gets really cold. And so, but the way it's shot, the way it is portrayed, we're not supposed to enjoy watching him get hurt. The idea isn't like punishment of him because he's a strong character. The idea is, oh, wow, look how resourceful this character is. Oh, wow, look how smart he is to think about wrapping his hands with parts of his shirt to get through this part of the, oh, wow, that took a lot of strength and a lot of resourcefulness to get through that.
But
as opposed to when it's a female badass, it's more like, it's more porn. It's more graphic. It's more over the top. It's more about the enjoyment of watching her go through that stuff.
Right.
And it's not about her resourcefulness or her smarts, because then she also gets infantilized. She's completely useless on her own.
Well, I think the two things are a little bit different. I think a more apt comparison would be, because one of the things about the torture that particularly River Tam goes through, she's strapped down, she is confined, she's bound. And I think a more apt comparison would be when Mal and Wash are actually tortured. Not that they go through a trial, or it's not, they're not moving, they're going. I mean, comparing what they. So I'm, comparing some of the torture, even that. When does Lilu get tortured?
It's the same thing. It's that when we watch Mal and Wash get tortured, we're not expected to be like ooh about it. We're like, oh, look how Mal keeps his emotional strength in order to keep Wash going. Look at their physical strength that they're able to withstand, whatever it is they can withstand, and stuff like that. Whereas when we watch River get tortured, it's really quite pornographic.
Right, but the torture also, the torture in the context of the story. Well, yes, I agree. I don't have any beef with your assumption that in this particular trope, the badass women are infantilized. They are treated, they are given kind of that naive, particularly Lilu from Fifth Element is emotionally a child.
Yeah, she's literally born
yesterday. And to a certain extent, River Tam is that way too.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
But, so I mean, that's not where I see the whole. For me, the whole is that
it's the torture part of it.
It's the aspect around torture, because, whether the director intended this goes back to some of the stuff we used to talk about in graduate school, and about what your intention, what your
Can you think of any? I'm gonna ask you a twofold question then.
Okay.
When we talk about this, the trope. Both things about the trope are essential. Like, you can't really separate the one from the other. It's kind of the trope is actually both at the same time.
Right.
So I would ask, can you think of a male, specifically I'm thinking about a lot of action hero kind of centered characters. You can tell by the examples that I bring up in the article. So can you think of a male character that goes through a lot of trials and tribulations, but you don't even have to call it torture, although it may look like it in the movie, that goes through a lot of insane challenges, and yet is still useless without a female character or without another male character? In other words, do you see any central male action figure that goes through all these trials and tribulations and yet is not able to do it on his own, is basically useless without another man or without a woman.
Well,
or can you think of
that's
any
your entire
female
cop buddy movie right there, is these two guys.
They're not useless without the other, though. They save each other a lot, and they have a lot of sort of dual heroics. But you take either one of them, you put them in their own movie,
right.
They would be just fine.
Maybe.
They're not rendered useless without the other. I'm thinking Lethal Weapon in particular.
Right.
There's a lot of ways in which they ameliorate each other and they save each other, but yeah, they're not useless without each other.
Right, and I don't have and I think you're asking, and I understand that point, and that's another aspect of it that I don't have a problem with, because yes, you infantilize these women characters, and then you do make them dependent on some other male character, and we can talk about that in a little bit, the nuances of that. But I don't have a problem with that part of the trope. What I have a problem with is
the torture
how
part.
hard you're hitting that idea that we are asked to, or that we somehow are to be enjoying the sexualized torture of these characters.
You're expected to. You don't have to be.
when I think that's probably the hardest kind of thing to get my head around, because some people may get a charge out of watching women get tortured, and that this part thing really appeals to them. But, I have never conflated, and maybe it's because I don't have any attraction or I'm not tempted. I don't find bondage.
You just don't
interesting.
Yeah. I think that might be why that you're having trouble wrapping your brain around it too, because I would say then, this is my second question then. I would say then look at, or it's a request, not a question, but look at the underlying, not that you react that way, because you don't, but what you're expected to react like when you look at a female badass character going through stuff versus a male character. You're expected to feel differently about John Wick coming out of his movie all bloodied and sweaty than you are when you watch Beatrix Kiddo coming out of her movie bloodied and sweaty and on her back. It's a very different expectation of gaze. It's very different. And you may, of course, you like what you're saying. I don't get up on that. That's not anything that I would understand. But that is the expectation, is that you're expected to go, wow, James Bond is such a badass. Holy shit, how did he get through that? Whereas when you see Beatrix Kiddo go through her stuff, it's a whole different gaze. It's a whole different voyeuristic aspect of it.
But she doesn't have that sidekick or that male character that she's useless without.
Well, if it's arguable that her whole thing is about killing. It's, of course, the titles of the movie is Kill Bill.
Yeah.
And then we'll get more into her story when we look at Mother Knows Best as well.
Right. Yeah.
And though she does, spoiler alert, she does end up successful, she is still pretty damn she gets buried alive.
Well, yeah, that's what puts her on her journey, is getting buried alive. She's going to get revenge for having been buried alive. That seems... I regret having wasted my life watching those movies.
Sometimes just being a stunt coordinator, being a stage combat person, I tend to sort of, air quotes, enjoy movies that have a lot of interesting fight scenes, even though I don't necessarily enjoy the movies themselves. I just like them for their fight scenes. But that's a side note.
Here's another side note, because I feel like we've sort of brushed up against it, but I want to come back to it. I really liked, when I first saw it in college, Reservoir Dogs. I thought, that's pretty cool.
That's one of my favorite movies.
But then as I've watched other Tarantino movies over the years, I just kind of like, fuck off, dude.
Sometimes it's like watching David Mamet. It's just plays or movies. You're just like, do I have to listen to you fucking talk at me again?
Right.
It's like,
and
shut up.
Well, it's like,
my dude. Shh.
And I love Mamet too, but God, just sometimes you just gotta make him shut up.
I mean, I had the most violent reaction to Inglourious Bastards. I fucking hate that movie. That just
never saw it. Should I see it just so we can bitch about it?
No, I don't care what you do with it. Fuck that movie. I just hated it. And I sort of barely tolerated Django Unchained. I don't even know why I watched that.
I didn't see that one either.
But at least
I kind of petered out after Pulp Fiction, which I liked a lot. But
yeah, and then there was
I kind of stopped.
The Hateful Eight.
I stopped Disney and I stopped Tarantino at about the same time. What does that say about? I just kind of stopped watching Disney after Hercules. I just kind of stopped watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand Tarantino's obsession with violence, because I think some people make excuses for the violence in his movies, like, oh, it's, saying this, or oh, it's doing that, or oh, it's just this cartoon stuff. It's, he's trying
commenting on the numbness of us all towards the violence, I think.
And it's like, really? Because frankly, this is gratuitous and obnoxious, and it's not even, it's just like there because he wants to see how many blood packs he can blow up. It's like,
yeah, he mushes it in your face like a little, to an extreme.
And yes, when people, if you've got something to say about violence, then make the violence say something, not just be violence for violence sake, not just be gore for gore's sake.
I think in Pulp Fiction he did. I think in Pulp Fiction what happened with the violence was that there was so much of it that by the time we got to the kid's head getting blown apart in the car, we're suddenly laughing at the violence because there's so much of it. And we are dealing with characters that deal with it so casually and so often during their lives that it almost makes us question, like, oh my God, why am I laughing at this? This is horrible. But it does make you question that. I think other movies of his don't do that, but I think that's the idea.
Right.
If I was going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But obviously that's also in his earlier movies though. I think that after that he became so famous that I think after that it was just like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm Tarantino. Wee.
Right.
And if you look at Grindhouse is an actual, that's a very distinct version of this trope actually, even though all is women in that movie are amazing badasses.
Which one was his? Was that Death Car or whatever it was?
I think it was the one with the stunt women in it, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
From what I remember.
That one I didn't like.
It's this dual thing of young women and sexiness and violence. Like the sexiness and the violence are kind of like hand in hand.
Right. But to loop it back to what we're talking about here, is that same thing. It's that if they're trying to say something about, if they're trying to sexualize the torture of young, helpless women, it's not working on me.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad.
Okay. And to me, though, it seems like, so yeah, that's the hole in the trope for me, is because
you don't really get that.
Right. Now, and here's the other half of that. When it comes to, say, The Fifth Element, when you have the site, Corbin Dallas, that does make the whole thing problematic, because he's not really bringing anything special or unique to the table, except
he's just a man.
He's just a man.
Right. Yeah.
Right. She's a helpless, born yesterday naif who's going to save the world, but
except she's also, this is the thing, because I remember every one of the 7 tropes are about a badass character in particular. Like, you see the down the rabbit hole, like the non-badass version of it when you look at like horror movies where it's the girl running away into the forest. That's a damsel in distress. But when it's a badass character, it's like when it's Lilu or River Tam. These women are skinny and young looking, and often white, and yet they're geniuses, or they're extraordinary in some way. Look at how Lilu does her fight scenes. There's no way that skinny woman can do that kind of physical action, but then they get completely like their power gets completely taken away from them.
Well, like I said, when I think your trope holds up strongest with the Lilu character, because Corbin Dallas is not bringing anything unique or special to the table. Lilu is this, ultimate weapon badass, but has been infantilized and sexualized. That's all obvious right there with everything on there. And all Corbin Dallas is extra muscle with a dick. He's not really doing anything for her that she can't do for herself except for navigate the nuances of the world because she was born yesterday. Right. Yeah. For me, where this particular trope breaks down for River Tam is that she is legitimately physically, emotionally, psychologically damaged because of what happened to her. She had her amygdala stripped. She's been tampered with.
Yep.
So, and her brother in particular, yes, she relies on him heavily, but he actually brings something to the table to actually help her. He is a doctor. He's just not there to protect her from all the trouble she might get into because she's naive. He's actually has a functional, legitimate reason to be there. And so when he's helping her, it's not as condescending or sexual or sexist as Corbin Dallas, because he does have that purpose to find out what medically is wrong with her and fix it.
Right. Yeah. It's not nearly as overt as the Fifth Element thing.
Right.
Yeah. And she is still useless without him in her world.
Right,
She still can do nothing. She's not functional. But you can see in the story why it is.
Right. But she's useless a lot of times because she has been. She's useless in the way that a car is useless without tires, right? It's still a car. It still functions. You can still get it from one place to the other if you put it on a tow truck, but whereas Lilu is, aside from
there's no reason
naive,
why she should be dependent on him.
Right. There's no reason at all why she should be dependent on Corbin Dallas except for the fact that he has a dick. And that is condescending. That's ridiculous. Now that still doesn't. I still like that movie. It's a shit ton of fun to watch.
Oh no, it's totally fun. Yeah. No, like I say at the end of every article, like just still enjoy this stuff. It's great. It's great stuff. Well, okay. So then what about? I mean, why does it have to be a brother? Why couldn't she have a sister or her mother, the doctor, that could save her? Why does it have to be? Why does she have to be subservient to men?
They needed a love interest for Kaylee.
Okay. You know what? I'll allow it because that's adorable, and I love that love story so much.
Right.
Do you see what I mean, though? Like, you're right. There is so much more of an actual plot and character reason. And also, here's this: why isn't River Tam a curvy, heavy woman? Why is she not in her 20s, just like her brother? Why does she have to be this waif, this sexy, long-haired 17-year-old waif who is, of course, then also dependent on the men? You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you're right. There is way more character, way more plot reasons for her to be like that. But look at it, though, too. And it's okayer than Fifth Element is, for sure. For sure. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's arguable that Beatrix Kiddo in Kill Bill even is subservient to men in her world, although I would argue that she is. But you can see how it's still there.
She starts off being subservient. I mean, that's
her whole entire adventure is because of being subservient to this teacher.
At one point, and then him. So I mean, killing her and leaving her for dead.
Just like in all these tropes, there are some that are actually kind of almost okay.
Right.
And almost fine and almost not that. Like we looked at, what was it that we looked at in Wonder Woman last time? It was something. We found one or two characters in each trope, and we still will, that are like, well, that's almost, it's okay because of this, there are plot reasons. There are actual character reasons as opposed to just completely over the top shit like the first Marion and Marion effect.
Right, but it's the reason those are okay
there.
is because you have something that you have an exception to that okayness.
but like, again, why is it not her sister? Why is she skinny and waifish and sexy? Why is she not an older, full-boned? Why is she the older sister? Why? Well, do you know what I mean? Like, she's still a young, teenaged, kind of not quite woman that is subservient to the man or / men in her life who is actually portrayed as being pretty damn sexy.
Well, I guess if you're making someone into a secret weapon, then part of the, what was that? There was
sure. So why isn't Lilu a guy?
It was some movie or a cartoon. What was this? It was a story, I think, somewhere. I think it was a Philip K. Dick story. Oh shit, I can't remember the name of it. But it was like there was this epic world war is going on, and it was humans against machines, kind of like the Terminator thing, and there's this there's supposed to be this last stronghold of humans left, and this character is supposed to be trying to get to it, and he's always on the lookout for these other robots or drones or things that are put out by the machines that are trying to kill them all, that mimic like dying soldiers or wounded civilians or stuff like this.
Wasn't Blade Runner based on a Dick book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or this might have been Matheson.
Were they replicants? Oh, okay.
Not that Dick, but Matheson.
Okay.
But the guy who wrote The Incredible Shrinking Man and stuff like this. So this war is going on, and so you have everybody gets really paranoid about letting other people into their camps or their safe space, because the whole point behind the enemy is that they're making these human-like things that are injured or wounded or somehow crippled and weak, so that it activates that human compassion to go on, so they get it into their thing, and then it will turn on them and kill them all, right? So if you're going to be if you're going to make an ultimate weapon, which what River Tam was supposed to be, why not have her be the waifish, thin, helpless girl who then, a little switch goes off and she's, this ballerina of death.
Yeah, well, ballerina of death. That has to be the title of this episode. Every summer at the Longmont Dance Academy, I teach stage combat to the ballet academy. Right. I'm totally training ballerinas of death every summer.
But she is, because that whole scene at the end of the Serenity movie is ballet with an axe.
Yeah, Serenity movie.
You didn't like that one?
No.
What?
I didn't like it. I love Firefly.
Why did you not like the movie?
Because it was obviously Whedon just like, oh shit, okay. What could be the most? Okay. That's the whole. It sounded just like that the entire time to me. It was like Whedon in my ear going, oh shit. Okay. I don't have time for all the other shit I want to do. So. Anyway. But yeah, that's what you're saying too. I mean, exactly. Like, what is it that makes, especially, I would say, a heterosexual man's little brain click like that? Is seeing a helpless.
His or mine? Whedon's or mine?
I don't. Well, you're talking about, like, if I'm going to make like a fake. If I'm going to make the ultimate weapon, or if I'm going to tempt a human into coming to my bait, then you're going to make it into a young, sexy, helpless-ish young girl, right?
Right.
Because that's what makes your brain go click. So that's what I'm saying too.
because if you see something as harmless, you're going to let your guard down, whether it's a waifish, attractive, summer glow who.
I was about to say summer glow. That's so great.
Right. Or it's an injured puppy. Both of them kind of, they activate different areas, but both cause the audience to let their guard down, or the aggressor to let their guard down and go, okay, that's not a threat.
Right. Well, that's what this trope is. It's in two different ways that are connected, taking the power or the badassness away from a badass female character. And it does it in two ways, mostly at the same time, which is infantilizing her, which is taking away her powerfulness, or punishing her by torturing her, which is putting the audience in a voyeuristic place, which you would never be in because you're Jason Quinn Malott. But again, it's almost like it's punishing the character for the strength. But it's in those two ways, often at the same time, which is taking that power away. And you're absolutely right about that. Yes, that's why those characters are portrayed like that. And they're portrayed as badass in completely unreal. This is just an addition. This is just a branch off of the article. These characters are portrayed as extra badass, even though they physically don't appear like they would be that way. Like River Tam is a doe-eyed little teenage-looking skinny chick. Buffy is a teenaged skinny white chick. Lilu is really thin and born yesterday, so not you wouldn't expect such strength out of these girls, not quite women, except that it is there. Like River can kill you with her brain, and Lilu is this incredibly advanced specimen of whatever it is that she is, and Buffy is a slayer, and so they have all this kind of innate badassery that's yet undercut. And I would argue that this is just a branch of this is not the center of the trope. This is just sort of an extra. It's the first tiny step towards how they get undercut is by their physical appearance.
Right.
They're Alice. They're a girl. They're a little girl going into Wonderland, and they go through all this stuff.
Well, I think in all the cases when they get undercut, it's because we undermine their authority and agency as humans because of their gender. Yeah. And
by infantilizing them. In this particular case, it's infantilizing them and also putting them through the ringer in a completely different way than the male characters are put through ringers. This is why I bring up the Beatrice Kiddo / John Wick thing. They get put through both action movie centers, which is why I kind of compare those two in particular. They both end up similarly bloodied and with blood on their hands at the end of each of their movies. But our gaze is completely different with her than it is with John Wick. It's almost like, and I know that you don't perceive it like this, and good for you, that we're rooting for John Wick to get through all of his trials and tribulations, and we're not necessarily enjoying them, although fight scenes are always enjoyable to a certain degree.
Right.
But it's more about his resourcefulness, his savviness, his skills at martial arts, stuff like that. Whereas watching Beatrix Kiddo go through, it's almost like we're not rooting for her. It's almost like we're rooting for everyone pulverizing her to continue doing that. It's this very different slant at watching it. Yeah.
Well, maybe there are people that are rooting against Kiddo, but I wasn't.
It's pretty subtle. Well, no, it's pretty subtle. I mean, it's like, it's not like consciously going, yeah, Kung Fu guys, beat her to a pulp. It's not like you're consciously doing that. It's not like you're consciously fist pumping when you see her buried alive. It's just that it is a very subtle lens that gets put on the character, that we're expected to look at them a different way, and the way the lens is put on them makes us look at them a different way. Obviously you don't, and that's great, but I think a lot of people do, and I think a lot of people are actually influenced into looking at them that way because they're not really sure what's going on. It is so subtle. With these badass characters in particular, it's so subtle. Like the damsel in distress, it's like, oh yeah, ha ha. The teenage girl in her underwear is going to run off into the forest because there's a guy with a knife around, like that. That's just so obvious.
Well, the other thing with the horror movie thing is that the hoes get killed.
Right. Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
You know, and
sexuality and virtue and all that kind of shit.
That particular aspect of horror movies is intensely sexist.
Yes,
if a woman enjoys sex or likes sex or is free or liberated with their body, she's the first one to fucking die, and usually incredibly horribly.
And that body gets tortured for that.
And I mean, I think that is one of the many, many reasons that I just do not like horror movies.
I don't like horror movies so much either. I like the psychological thriller types a little bit sometimes, depending.
Yeah.
But not just the slasher-ish types. Although my partner sat me down and put me through Hellraiser the other day, and I found that to be very delightful.
Oh yeah,
I had a lovely time.
Yeah. Well, my lady friend is a big horror movie fan, and she made me watch Rosemary's Baby one time.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It wasn't for me.
Was it?
I know. I was sitting there watching that, and certain things would happen. I go, well, that's how you get a demon baby.
You know what?
And she was ready to throttle me. She was ready to throttle me every time I said demon baby. Oh, there's a demon baby, and she was like, shut up.
She's like, shut the fuck up. We should get our partners together and sit them down on the couch and let them watch their horror movies, and then you and I go like in the back of the room, like just totally snark our brains out at it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, there was one movie that she made me watch. It was the oh fuck. Do you know that series of movies, the Annabelle series with the doll that looks really freaky and is supposed to be possessed or whatever?
Oh no, but freaky mannequins always are kind of scary to me.
What was the name of that movie? I can't remember the name of that movie. Anyway.
Especially the Autons from like old Doctor Who Autons.
Yeah, but
their hand like falls off and it's a gun. Anyway,
but so I
haven't seen the Annabelle movie.
Yeah, this one isn't one of the Annabelle movies, but the Annabelle doll kind of has a place in the movie. But the actual story is about this family that is in this house that apparently gets possessed. One of the mother gets possessed by some, demon lady that sacrificed her children and hung them from a tree or something. I mean, there was a certain part of that movie that did end up frightening me because I had trouble sleeping.
Oh.
I mean, it was very well done. I mean, the movie was very well done. But there's a certain part of me that's like, some people will go, oh, you don't like horror movies because you're scared. No, you give me a good scary horror movie, and it's like, okay, you give me a good scary movie, I will be okay, cool, do it well.
Yeah, I'm scared.
But
sure. Yeah.
Most of this, yes, I'm. A scary movie. If it scares you, cool. Most of what you call horror movies or scary movies don't scare me. They do scary. They do that Rosemary's Baby thing where everybody's like going, oh, this is good. This is such a scary. And I'm like going, demon baby, demon baby. That's how you get a demon baby. Right.
Well, that's why I like more of the psychological type thriller types, because those are just that's just scarier to me than watching lots of fake blood.
And so many horror movies for me just are comedy.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the horror movies are actually sort of meant to be like that in a certain way.
Right. And I think part of the reason, and I wish I could remember the name of the movie that she showed me. Maybe I'll try and look it up here.
Things you're talking about are totally relevant to this trope. This is just a badass version of a lot of the things you're talking about. It's just that I take tropes that are pretty familiar, or I invent new ones. But
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring. The Conjuring. Okay.
Did you ever see that one?
No. Again, like you, I'm not a huge horror movie aficionado.
Okay. So that was the thing about The Conjuring, is that when characters react rationally to the horror that is happening around them, then I buy into it. And I'll be like, yes, that was scary. That scared me. The Conjuring scared me a little bit because the people in it reacted rationally to this stuff that was going on. Most of the time in horror movies, people don't, to me, they don't react the way I would expect someone to react.
Well, that's why the Scream franchise is so popular, because it's just like it totally takes all the horror movie tropes. It's like, hey,
and
the phone call comes in, it's coming from your house, like all those old stereotypical like silly shit.
The minute somebody starts, reacting irrationally or and that's okay. So that's actually, I guess, me saying people act rationally to horror is actually.
No, you're saying they act realistically.
They react realistically. They react in a believable way.
You don't mean rationality, yeah.
Because often when you're presented with something frightening, your reaction is irrational.
Right, but it'll be realistic.
But it'll be realistic. So it's like, when you've seen something, when you found the horribly mutilated body in the woods.
Oh, I hate that when that happens.
Right. And you think, well, that's just the perfect time to go take a shower by myself. That's how you get a demon, baby. And
we should have a little line of advice for every of these episodes too. This one's that's how you get a demon, baby.
That's how you get a demon, baby. And I think
for Wonder Woman, it's why are they all so hot?
Right. And so, I mean, I guess the whole point that I was trying to get at is like for like 90% of this trope, I'm like going, yep. And it's just that aspect about the sexualization of torture that I just kind of go, no.
Well, good for you.
I don't get it.
You can go ahead and be vanilla all you like.
All right.
More power to you.
Fine with me.
No, you know what I'm saying. Though.
Considering, that's the thing. This is the other thing that I, after years of listening to Dan Savage, after years of listening to Dan Savage, what I'm thinking is that there's a reason I'm alone. It's because one, I'm faulty and broken as a person, and two, it's because
who isn't?
Then two, the other reason that I'm alone is I don't have any kinks.
Oh, I bet you do.
No, I don't.
You just need to experiment.
I don't have any kinks.
You're in kink denial.
No. I've been asked about this repeatedly. In fact, I'm in therapy right now because of it. I'm in therapy because I don't have a kink.
No kink is a kink, man.
No, it's not.
That's really kinky that you don't have any kinks. Well, okay.
Right.
So you don't react that way, but you can see how the lens put on the characters is trying to make you see it.
I see why you see it that way. And I understand why there might be people out there who will react in the way that you are saying they will react.
And you just don't.
And I'm not sure I would like those people.
Hey, don't knock my burlesque act, Troy, with my thigh with a little leather strap. Don't knock it.
Yeah. I tried some BDSM once stuff, and I just collapsed in a fit of laughter. It was horribly funny.
Yeah,
I just can't commit to it. It's ridiculous.
That's how you get demon babies too.
You get demon babies. I mean,
right?
There was a writing crop involved, and I just, I felt ridiculous. I just could not.
Couple of chains later, and you get demon babies. That's what happens. Yeah. No, that's totally valid too. That's at least the idea behind these characters.
I have some bondage rope. I gave it a try once, and we decided not to do that anymore because apparently something chafed something badly. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't me.
Wow. Okay. Your listeners are all like, "Oh my god, I know way too much about Jason Quinn Malott right now."
Right. This is what happens. You put a little wine in me. You get me talking about story and how
and
we
then
construct
and
it.
you have a demon baby.
And you get me around with my friend Jenn, who we used to drink strangers under the table talking about books.
Friends under the table.
Friends. Well, he's a stranger now, isn't he? Anyway, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, he used to be our friend until he tried to drink with us, and then
now he's a stranger.
he was like, "Shit, who are these demon babies?
Demon babies!
Cannot keep up with them." Poor guy.
So that is our take on your problematic badass female tropes down the rabbit hole or down the badass hole.
Down the bad asshole.
Down the badass hole. Down the badass hole. Down the badass hole. Down.
Bad asshole.
I think we're done. Say goodbye to everybody. The next one will be the meaning of his life will be the next one.
Oh, good.
Yes. We get to talk about Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman.
Yay. So we'll see you for the next one, people.
Bye-bye.
The Outrider Podcast is recorded by me, Jason Quinn Malott, and cleaned up by my badass producer, Heather Ann Eden. The songs Choose an Adventure and Break and Mend used in this series are by Wichita-based band Cartwheel off their new EP, Best Days, and are used by permission of the copyright holder, Kristen Chapman. You can get Cartwheel's EP on Apple Music and Spotify, so visit them at www.cartwheel.band.